These attractive mosaic lanterns are easily made from old jam jars, giving a new lease of life with careful application of black outliner and some vibrant glass paints. A candle inside creates a stained glass window effect, providing glowing illumination both indoors and out. Place a clean, smooth glass jam jar on its side on a sheet of kitchen towel. Using a flexible ruler or tape measure and measuring from just below the neck of the jam jar, use a chinograph pencil to mark out points on 4 parallel lines, each 2 centimetres apart, that will encircle the jar. Keep turning the jam jar while marking the positions. You're then ready to use outliner to join up the marks and create the lines. Resting the jam jar on its side on kitchen paper to stop it from slipping, use black glass painting outliner to connect up the marks to make the 4 lines, so forming 3 bands. See the basic technique on working with outliners if you make a mistake. Work on the surface facing you and move on to creating the mosaic design before turning the jar and working on its other face. Create the mosaic shapes by drawing lines in outliner between the bands. Vary the lines so some are straight, some are slanted and a few are zigzags. You may find it helpful to place the ruler underneath the jar, slightly to one side of it, to stop the jar rolling away as you work. When you've finished the design on one half of the jar, set it aside to give the outliner time to dry. When it's dry, continue on the other side of the jar until the bands and mosaic sections completely cover the jar. Leave the outliner to dry again and then start to paint each mosaic section in a different colour. Use a brush with a fine tip so you can make sure the paint goes right up to the outliner and into the corners. Dab the paint on with the brush to get an even layer. Because the surface of the jar is curved, you'll only be able to paint 1 or 2 sections at a time, otherwise the paint will pool and run. Clean the brush before moving on to use another colour on the next square. After painting a couple of sections, leave the jar until these are just touch dry and then turn the jam jar and continue painting. Make sure the same colour doesn't appear in adjacent panels and be sure to clean the brush between colours. You can use either water or oil-based paints and you can mix the types as long as you use the correct solvents to clean the brushes. If you're using water-based paints, just clean the brush in water. Use white spirit for oil-based paints. Remember, always dispose of white spirit carefully. Continue until all the panels are filled up and then leave to dry. Work on several jars at the same time so you get a production line going where you're not wasting time waiting for another outliner or paint to dry. To make the handle, use a 30cm length of 1mm thick black wire, which you can get at craft shops. Cut it with a pair of wire cutters. Use round nose pliers to bend one end of this length into a loop. At the other end, thread on the beads that will form the decoration at the bottom of the handle. Use 6 different coloured, differently shaped beads. The colours should coordinate with the glass paints that you've used. Now thread on another 6 beads, but in the reverse order to the ones already threaded to create a symmetrical pattern. Make a loop at the other end of the wire with the pliers and bend the wire into a handle shape. Push the closest set of 6 beads along the handle towards this loop. Measure and cut another piece of wire that's about 3 centimetres longer than the circumference of the top rim of the jar. Make a loop at one end of this wire with the round nose pliers and thread the loops of the handle onto it. Wrap the unbeaded wire tightly around the neck of the jam jar, pull the free end through the loop, snip off the excess and bend back on itself to form a loop to secure. Adjust the beads to sit each side of the handle and the lantern's finished. Add a tea light and use indoors or out. Safety first, never leave burning candles unattended.